The Universal Alliance's victory had been hard-won. For millennia, different species fought bitterly for control of star systems, resources, and power. But after a bloody war that nearly tore the galaxy apart, a tenuous peace was forged. A loose coalition of species, each with their own strengths and cultures, came together under a single banner, the Galactic Fleet. With their combined might, they ended the reign of warlords, dictators, and rival factions. Under the flag of unity, the Alliance established a golden age. The threat of warfare was minimized, trade and travel flourished, and knowledge shared freely between worlds. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy could breathe easy. The Galactic Fleet's warships patrolled the borders of known space, ensuring the rule of law and peace in all systems. The fleet's leaders were praised, their policies celebrated as the key to this new era of prosperity. Powerful fleets of starships from the Xaran Dominion, the Aeliths, and other species made up the backbone of the defense network, bolstering a peaceful galaxy with formidable military strength. They crushed any hint of rebellion or chaos before it could spread. For all the Alliance's accomplishments, however, there were those who felt uneasy about the peace. Quiet murmurs of discontent rippled through the undercurrents of the galaxy. Some believed the fleets were too powerful, too unchallenged. Others feared that the peace might not be as eternal as it seemed. They worried that complacency had settled over the Alliance, leaving them vulnerable to an unforeseen threat. But for the most part, these concerns were drowned out by the celebration of triumph. The galaxy was unified, and no one doubted that the Alliance's fleets were invincible. The mention of humanity was barely a whisper in the halls of power. In distant corners of the galaxy, humans were considered little more than an anomaly, a minor species that had only recently begun exploring space. Their technology was primitive compared to the mighty fleets of the Galactic Alliance. Their ships were small and outdated. They had no unified government, no grand alliances, no reason to challenge the mighty fleets of the galaxy. Some in the Alliance even considered them a curiosity, their early probes into space dismissed as insignificant. Yet even so, there were a few who paid attention. Some among the Xaran Dominion, renowned for their advanced intelligence networks, detected a strange signal emanating from the far reaches of uncharted space. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A signal unlike anything the Dominion sensors had ever encountered. For a brief moment, the Terran commanders thought it was nothing, perhaps interference or a glitch, but they couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. And so the first wave of scouts was sent out to investigate. What they would find would change everything. Unbeknownst to the fleet, a new player was making its presence known, one that would challenge the very foundations of the peace they had worked so hard to achieve. The humans, who had been little more than a footnote in the galaxy's story, were about to change the course of history. Their warships, dark, sleek, and unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, were heading straight for the heart of the Alliance. The question on everyone's mind was no longer, who are they? But what do they want? The scouts who were dispatched to investigate the strange signal had no idea what they were walking into. At first, their mission seemed like little more than a routine check, a way to confirm that the anomaly in the outer reaches of space was just another natural phenomenon. But as their ships ventured deeper into the uncharted territory, something unusual began to take shape. The signal, weak and erratic at first, gradually grew stronger, as though it was calling them closer. The scouts, a mix of Xaran and Aelith ships, cruised carefully, unsure of what they might find. The closer they got, the stranger the readings became. This was not like any known technology they had ever encountered. This wasn't a distress call, nor a malfunctioning beacon. It was deliberate, it had purpose, and it was directed at them. As the scout fleet neared the source of the signal, an eerie silence blanketed the ships. Nothing seemed out of place, except for the fact that the stars grew faint, as if a shadow had passed over them. They were on the edge of a system, a dead, lifeless corner of space. No planets, no signs of life, just endless void and the dark silence of the unknown. The scouts' advanced sensors hummed in the background, gathering data, but there was no sign of what had sent the signal. Then, without warning, the first of the human warships appeared. It was not a ship they could comprehend at first. Unlike anything seen in the known galaxy, the craft was dark, almost black, its surface reflecting no light, its silhouette barely visible against the void. It moved with unsettling speed, positioning itself between the scouts and the source of the signal. The scouts' communications scrambled to make contact, but their signals were swallowed by static. They tried again and again, but nothing. It was as though the ship itself absorbed the very essence of space. Before they could react, the dark warship fired. The first strike was swift and devastating. The scouts had no time to comprehend what was happening before the energy blast from the human ship slammed into the Xaran vessel. It exploded in a violent burst of light, fragments scattering across the stars. The remaining ships barely managed to maneuver, but the human ship was already locking onto its next target. The humans didn't hesitate. One after another, they unleashed a barrage of weaponry, their firepower unlike anything the scouts had ever seen. The blast struck with surgical precision, disabling ships before they could return fire. Within moments, the Xaran fleet was scattered, their once pristine ships reduced to floating wreckage. The few Elith ships in the group tried to retreat, but it was too late. Another human warship appeared, from a direction they hadn't anticipated. It opened fire with a rapid succession of smaller, concentrated energy beams, ripping through the remaining vessels. There was no attempt at negotiation, no words of warning. The humans attacked with a cold, almost calculating precision, leaving nothing but shattered ships in their wake. In the wake of the attack, the surviving scouts sent one final panicked transmission back to the Galactic fleet before their ships were destroyed. They're here. They don't negotiate. They don't surrender. They just destroy. The message was brief, but it sent ripples through the entire galaxy. The news of the attack spread like wildfire. The Galactic fleet, in shock, could not fathom the audacity of the humans. No one had expected such a brutal, one-sided assault from a species so primitive. But the humans weren't acting like primitives. They had outclassed the most powerful fleets the galaxy had ever seen with an intensity and precision that defied all expectations. The question, once again, echoed across the galaxy. Who were these humans? The answer was clear, but terrifying. They were conquerors. The news of the attack spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The moment the surviving scouts' transmission reached the Galactic Fleet's command center, it ignited chaos. The transmission, brief but filled with terror, confirmed what no one had wanted to believe. Humanity was no longer a curiosity. They had arrived, and they had brought with them an unyielding wrath. The Alliance's Central Council convened in an emergency meeting, a rare occurrence. The room, usually calm and filled with measured deliberations, now buzzed with frantic energy. Representatives from the various species, each with their own approach to crisis, could barely contain their unease. The Aeliths, renowned for their wisdom, sat still with furrowed brows, their pale faces betraying the first signs of concern they had shown in centuries. The Xarans, typically brimming with confidence, had become quiet, their most powerful fleets reduced to debris by a force they couldn't even understand. The meeting room was filled with holographic projections, each showing data from the attack. Maps of the system, coordinates of the destroyed vessels, and images of the human warships that had appeared without warning. It was like watching a predator strike without hesitation, overpowering its prey with ruthless efficiency. "Who are they?" demanded Korath, the general of the Xaran Dominion. His voice, usually calm and commanding, was laced with disbelief. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their ships are. They're something we've never seen before." Elith Representative Lizura, the eldest member of the council, spoke in measured tones. "We have been tracking human activity for some time. Their early expeditions, their probes into the far reaches of space, all of it had been dismissed. But now, it seems, we were wrong to ignore them. Wrong. Korath's voice rose. We underestimated them. This is no longer an issue of diplomacy or negotiation. They came in, and they attacked with no warning, no reason. And we couldn't even put up a fight. The council fell silent for a moment, the weight of the realization heavy in the air. Humanity was not here to join the peaceful order of the galaxy. They had not come seeking allies or new members for the Alliance. They had come with a singular purpose: to destroy, to conquer, and to dominate. A young, ambitious officer from the Infala, a race known for their quick adaptability, leaned forward, tapping his interface to display the reports on his screen. The humans didn't just strike at random. They targeted critical infrastructure, research stations, supply depots, communication relays. They hit us where it hurts most, and they did it fast. Lizara's eyes narrowed. They are not just testing us. They are calculating, deliberate. They are learning our weaknesses, studying us like prey. The tension in the room thickened. The Alliance had faced wars before, but nothing like this. In all their history, they had never encountered an enemy who struck so quickly, so decisively. They had been able to outmaneuver, overpower, and destroy their enemies before, but humanity was different. They did not follow the rules of war that the Galactic fleet had relied on for centuries. The humans had no regard for honor or diplomacy. Their methods were simple, direct, deadly, and utterly unpredictable. We need to understand them, Lizura continued. We need to know what drives them, what they want. We cannot fight them until we know how they think. Do you think we have time for that? Korath shot back. They've already shown they don't care about our diplomacy. What makes you think they'll hesitate if we try to engage them again? The room fell silent once more. The truth was undeniable. Humanity had not simply arrived. They had declared war. They weren't just another species looking for a place among the stars. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the Alliance had no idea how to stop them. At that moment, the head of the Galactic fleet, Admiral Varric, who had spent most of his career studying military strategy, stood up. He had remained quiet throughout the meeting, but now his voice rang out with an unsettling calm. We've never faced anything like this before, and that means we need to change our tactics. We need to think outside the box. We've always been the dominant force, but that's no longer true. Humanity has taken the initiative, and if we don't act quickly, we might lose everything we've worked for. The room went quiet again, the weight of his words settling on the council members. For the first time in the history of the Galactic fleet, they weren't in control of the situation. The galaxy was on the verge of a transformation that could either spell their destruction or force them to adapt in ways they had never imagined. The news of the attack sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Galactic fleet scrambled into motion, rallying its resources and preparing for an unprecedented conflict. The Council's debate quickly turned from how to understand the human threat to how to stop it. But the humans, as it turned out, were not interested in waiting for any response. They had already made their next move. Within days of their first strike, humanity's warships began to appear at the edges of the most critical systems, places where the Galactic fleet had once ruled with unquestioned authority. The first wave was just the beginning. What followed was an invasion unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity's fleet, composed of sleek, black warships, moved swiftly, silently, and without hesitation. They appeared out of nowhere, as though they had been waiting for the right moment to pounce. The size of the human fleet was staggering. Where the Galactic fleet once stood unchallenged, humanity now filled the skies with their ships. Massive, towering craft, each more advanced and menacing than anything the Alliance had in its arsenal. Their arrival was immediate, overwhelming, and utterly uninvited. At the heart of this new armada were the flagship warships, black as voids, with jagged edges that seemed to absorb the very light around them. These ships were like no others the galaxy had ever encountered. They did not resemble the polished, symmetrical designs of the Alliance's ships. Instead, they seemed almost organic, as though they had been grown for battle, rather than crafted. Their hulls were dark and pitted, covered in what appeared to be reinforced armor that pulsed with an unsettling energy. As humanity's fleet poured into the galaxy, its sheer presence was enough to send ripples of panic through the galactic systems. The Alliance's early intelligence reports indicated that these human warships weren't just technologically advanced. They were also far more agile and unpredictable than the fleet's most sophisticated vessels. The human ships executed complex maneuvers at speeds that even the Aeliths, known for their precise, near-telepathic tactics, couldn't match. The first major clash occurred in the Zion system. The Galactic fleet had stationed its largest defensive force there, guarding the most valuable resources in the sector. It was a system the Alliance had always considered a fortress, impenetrable and secure. But humanity's warships arrived without warning. The flagship of the human fleet, the Judgment, loomed over the system, its massive form blocking out the stars. The initial attack was brutal. In a matter of minutes, the human ships deployed advanced weaponry that tore through the Galactic fleet's defenses with terrifying efficiency. Energy beams, faster than any known system could react, cut through shields as though they were paper. Torpedoes, designed to track and disable rather than destroy outright, disabled entire fleets in moments, leaving them vulnerable to further attacks. There were no grand speeches, no demands. The humans weren't here to talk. They were here to break the galactic order, and they were succeeding. The galactic forces attempted to organize a counterattack. Warships from the Xaran Dominion, the Aeliths, and several other systems converged in a desperate effort to push back the human invaders. The fleets formed tight formations, attempting to trap the humans in a chokehold. But humanity's ships cut through the Alliance's defenses like a knife through cloth. Their tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They didn't fight with brute force alone. They adapted to every countermeasure, exploiting weaknesses in the Alliance's strategies with an eerie precision. And then, as quickly as they arrived, the human warships began to retreat, leaving the remnants of the fleet in chaos. It was not a retreat of defeat, but one of deliberate choice. The humans had made their point. They had shown the galaxy that they were not here for diplomacy. They were here to dominate, to impose their will upon a galaxy that had long believed it was untouchable. The aftermath of the Zion system's fall was devastating. Several of the most advanced ships in the Galactic fleet were reduced to wreckage, their debris scattered across the system like the bones of a long-dead civilization. No one had expected such a fast, overwhelming strike, and yet the humans had already made their presence known. They had darkened the skies of the galaxy with their warships, and the galaxy was now forced to reckon with the terrible, undeniable truth. Humanity had come, and they were not leaving. In the wake of the brutal attack on the Zion system, panic spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy. The Galactic fleet had always prided itself on its strength, its unity, and its dominance over the stars. But now, for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was forced to confront the unthinkable. There was a force far beyond their control. Humanity had torn through their defenses with frightening efficiency, and no one knew what to do next. The council convened again, but this time there was no debate. There were no discussions about diplomacy or peaceful resolutions. This was not the time for strategy. It was the time for survival. We can't just sit here and wait for them to come to us, Admiral Varric said, his voice grim. The attack on Zon was not a one-off. The humans are systematic, deliberate. We are no longer facing an enemy of equal strength. We are facing an extinction-level threat. If we don't act, the galaxy as we know it will cease to exist. Korath, the general of the Xaran Dominion, stood up, his towering frame a silhouette of anger and frustration. I told you all we were too complacent. This peace was an illusion, and now we're paying the price for our arrogance. What use is our fleet if we can't even hold one system? Our most powerful ships were destroyed in minutes. They didn't even break a sweat. Lazura, the Elith representative, remained calm, but her normally serene face was drawn tight with worry. We underestimated them, but we must understand the nature of their strength. The human ships are not invincible. They can be stopped, but we must discover their weaknesses, or we will never survive this. The tension was palpable. There was no plan, no clear way forward. And with each passing day, humanity's warships continued to spread throughout the galaxy. Systems fell like dominoes, one after another. In every place where the humans arrived, chaos erupted. Entire fleets were destroyed in single engagements, and once proud civilizations scrambled to flee. The galactic leaders could barely hold their ground. The human warships didn't even need to overwhelm the entire fleet to strike fear. Their tactics were precise, targeted, and devastating. They didn't engage in traditional space battles. Instead, they would isolate key systems, disable communication and transport lines, and then retreat, leaving the enemy vulnerable and broken. The humans made no attempt to occupy planets, no grand speeches or declarations of war. They simply eradicated their opposition with clinical detachment and moved on. For the first time, the Alliance's greatest minds were unsure. There were no plans that could account for this level of unpredictability. The humans adapted faster than any species they'd ever faced. The tactics the Alliance had relied on for generations were ineffective against such an adversary. Desperation began to set in. Some factions began to break away, proposing their own methods of dealing with the invaders. The Xaran Dominion, angered by their losses, considered rallying the remaining forces for an all-out assault, no matter the cost. The Aeliths, ever calculating, pushed for more diplomacy, for espionage, and for understanding before launching another strike. But the humans had already made it clear they didn't care for diplomacy. They didn't care for surrender. They only cared for their objective, and that was total dominance. In the chaos, a message came through from an unexpected source. It was a small, isolated fleet from the Invala, a race long considered weak by the Alliance, who had observed the humans from afar. They claimed they had discovered something that might turn the tide. A pattern in the humans' tactics. They weren't attacking indiscriminately. They were targeting specific points, key strategic positions. If they could predict the next move, they might be able to launch a counteroffensive. But even this faint glimmer of hope came with a warning. The humans are not like any enemy we've faced, the message concluded. Their resolve is terrifying. They will fight until nothing remains. They cannot be reasoned with, only fought. As the galaxy descended further into confusion, one thing became undeniably clear. Humanity was not here to negotiate, not here to compromise. They were here for something far more terrifying, something the galaxy could not yet fully understand, but was beginning to fear: conquest. The galaxy had plunged into a state of disarray, with entire star systems falling one after another, swallowed by humanity's relentless onslaught. The galactic fleet's greatest minds were grasping for a solution, but the humanity they now faced was not a force that could be stopped by traditional means. The realization had set in. The once untouchable fleet was no longer the dominant power in the galaxy. It was a terrifying thought, but it was a truth they could no longer ignore. In the face of growing destruction, a galactic council finally called for what many had feared: the last-ditch effort at a united front. If they were to have any hope of surviving this invasion, they would have to pool their resources, their military assets, and their resolve. No more debates, no more hesitation. There was only one option left: an all-out war effort, a fight for survival. The summit convened in a vast chamber deep within the Alliance's headquarters, a place once known for making grand decisions about peace and cooperation. But now, the atmosphere was thick with urgency and fear. Representatives from the different species were scattered across the room, their once proud faces etched with worry. But even in the face of imminent annihilation, there was a shared sense of defiance. Admiral Varric stood at the head of the council. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by a fiery determination. We've all seen the reports. Humanity is not like anything we faced before. But we have one advantage they don't. They underestimate us. They see us as fractured, divided. But this is our strength. We will stand together, or we will fall one by one. The various leaders nodded gravely. The Aeliths, once the voice of reason and caution, stood with a quiet resolve. The Xaran Dominion, still nursing their wounds from the disastrous battle at Zon, bristled with anger. The Envala, always seen as weak, had come forward with a surprising insight, a potential weakness in humanity's methods. The message they had sent had been brief but vital. Humanity's strategy appeared to hinge on a core principle: precision. They didn't seek widespread destruction. They focused on strategic targets, vital communication relays, military bases, research stations. If they could sever the chain of command, humanity would be forced to fight in a way they had not planned for. To beat them, we must do what they are doing, said Lizura, the Aelith representative, her voice sharp. We need to disrupt their operations, cripple their supply lines, and take away their ability to strike with such precision. Varric stepped forward, tapping a holographic display to show the coordinates of critical Alliance systems and supply hubs. We need to act fast. They are everywhere, and every moment we wait, they get stronger. Our fleets are already being scattered. We need to make our move before they can adjust. The room was quiet for a moment as the representatives took in the gravity of the plan. There was no room for error now. They would have to execute a coordinated strike, targeting humanity's weakest points, while the enemy was still spreading itself thin, attempting to conquer multiple systems at once. I know we have the strength to do this, Korath, the Xaran general, said, his voice filled with resolve. But we must act as one. No more divisions. If we fail, the galaxy falls. The leaders were in agreement. They were fractured, but they would unite for this one final battle. The Aeliths would provide intelligence, the Xarans would lead the charge with their formidable fleets, and the Envala would act as scouts, using their fleet's nimble ships to gather real-time data. Every species had something to contribute, something to offer in this desperate bid for survival. As the meeting progressed, plans began to take shape. They would launch a surprise counteroffensive, focusing on the systems humanity had already struck. The goal was not to engage in full-scale battles, but to hit humanity's logistical chains, cut off their reinforcements, disrupt their supply routes, and destroy the infrastructure they had used to devastate so many systems. The decision was made. There was no time to waste. The fleet would be ready in 48 hours, and the operation would begin. But as the council dissolved and preparations began, one question lingered in the minds of all the leaders. Would their combined strength be enough to stop the human war machine? The galaxy had never faced an enemy like humanity before, but now, for the first time in centuries, they would fight with everything they had, united in their resolve to survive. The hours leading up to the coordinated assault felt like a lifetime. The combined fleets of the Alliance were assembling at key locations, each fleet, each species, setting aside old grievances in the face of the human threat. They had no choice. Their only hope was unity. The strategic operations had been set in motion, and all across the galaxy, fleets began to move in perfect synchronization. The Aelith's Advanced Intelligence Network, now fully tapped into human communications, had pinpointed their most critical locations, supply depots, refueling stations, and command posts. The Envala, with their fleet's nimble, stealthy ships, scouted the human lines, relaying vital information about their positions and movements. The Xarans, eager for revenge, were preparing for the most direct assault, their battle-hardened forces ready to strike without mercy. The final operation, codenamed Operation Eclipse, was set to commence. Their strategy was simple but risky: hit the humans where they had not yet fortified their position, where they had not yet anticipated resistance. The first wave of attack would be aimed at disrupting humanity's central command hubs, followed by a series of raids that would cut off their supply routes, severing their ability to launch quick strikes. As the fleet set off toward their designated targets, the tension within the command center was palpable. Admiral Varric stood before the holographic map, his hand resting lightly on the surface as he watched the coordinated forces begin to converge. This was it, the point of no return. "Remember, this is our one chance." Varric's voice was calm but firm. "We strike fast, and we strike hard. We cannot afford to hesitate. If we give them an opening, they will crush us. We fight as one, or we all fall." The fleet moved forward, their destination looming ahead, the edge of a once proud system that had fallen to humanity's relentless advance. The humans had struck here first, and it was here the Alliance would make their stand. The once populous planets now sat in eerie silence, darkened by the shadow of the invaders' dominance. But the Alliance fleets were coming, swift, decisive, and united. As the attack commenced, the human warships, massive, dark shapes against the backdrop of stars, appeared on the horizon. They were there, waiting, their ships positioned in a perfect defensive formation. The Alliance's surprise had not gone unnoticed. The humans had expected them. The first wave of Saran warships, faster than most of the enemy's crafts, surged forward. They fired their weapons with terrifying precision, targeting the outer defenses of humanity's position. The enemy's shield systems flared, and sparks of energy erupted across the dark sky. But the human response was immediate. A barrage of energy blasts shot from the human warships, striking down several Xaran ships in moments. Admiral Varric watched the scene unfold on the hologram. "Keep pressing. Disrupt their formation. We need to create openings." The Aeliths, using their advanced cloaking technology, slipped behind enemy lines, silently disabling human supply lines. Small fast ships darted in and out of the fray, cutting off communication and drawing humanity's ships into chaotic pursuits. The Invala, ever opportunistic, launched their strike at the human command ship, slipping in undetected and launching a direct hit at the vulnerable flagship. But the humans were more prepared than anyone had anticipated. They responded with terrifying coordination. The flagship of the human fleet, the Judgment, unleashed a pulse of energy, obliterating several Invala ships in seconds. Then, as if on cue, humanity's warships adjusted their positions, countering each attack with unsettling speed. They were adapting in real time, learning from every engagement. "We need to fall back." Korath's voice rang out over the comms, his fury evident. "They've turned the tide. They're too well coordinated." But Varric held firm. "No, this is only the beginning. We've disrupted their outer defenses. Now we hit their supply lines." With the initial wave of attacks stalling, the remaining Alliance fleets launched a surprise maneuver, targeting humanity's fleet's fuel reserves and transport routes. It was a gamble. If they could cut off the human warships from their resources, they might force them into a retreat. But the enemy wasn't retreating. Not yet. The battle raged on, each side throwing everything they had into the conflict. The Alliance's forces were stretched thin, their ships battered, their commanders on the edge of panic. Humanity, however, fought with the precision of a deadly machine. For every blow the Alliance landed, humanity answered with tenfold retaliation. As the battle stretched on, it became clear. No one was walking away from this without sacrifice. The Alliance was united, but humanity's resolve was unshakable. The battle waged on, neither side willing to yield. The Alliance, exhausted and battered, pushed forward with every ounce of their remaining strength. Humanity, relentless and unforgiving, responded with the same calculated ferocity that had defined every engagement since the first strike at Zahn. But something had shifted in the tide. As hours turned into days, the humans began to reveal something their enemies hadn't fully understood. This war was never about conquest for the sake of territory. It was about total control, a reshaping of the galaxy to fit their vision. Admiral Varric's strategy was still in play. But now he was beginning to see the cracks in his own leadership. The alliance was stretched thin, their fleets already in disarray. Communication between factions began to break down, as smaller, more independent forces started to pull back from the fight, unwilling to sacrifice everything for an uncertain victory. Fear began to creep in. Fear of losing everything. Fear of facing a force that had proven more capable, more adaptable, and more willing to sacrifice than they had anticipated. The humans had revealed their true purpose. They were not just destroying the Alliance's military strength. They were breaking the very spirit of the galaxy. In every system they conquered, they didn't just dismantle the infrastructure. They sent a message. The message was clear, spoken not through words but through actions. Resistance is futile. Admiral Varric's desperation grew as he saw entire fleets crumble under the human onslaught. His ships had suffered severe losses, their firepower weakening with each wave. But the humans were not finished, nor were they interested in claiming a hollow victory. Their warships moved with the precision of a surgical strike, picking apart the weakened remains of the Alliance forces, picking off ships one by one. It was only a matter of time before the final blow came. The Judgment, humanity's flagship, hovered just beyond the heart of the battle, a symbol of their unyielding will. Its dark silhouette blotted out the stars, casting an ominous shadow across the combat zone. And now, humanity was closing in on the final Alliance stronghold, the headquarters of the Galactic fleet. The last bastion of the Alliance's leadership was within their grasp. The Alliance leaders, huddled in their command center, watched as their defenses crumbled. Lizura, the Elith representative, was the first to speak. "We have no choice. We must surrender. There is no more we can do. Their resolve is unbreakable. They have outlasted us." Varric turned to face her, a look of defiance still burning in his eyes. "You speak of surrender, but I will not. We will not give up. The human fleet may have the power to break us, but we will not let them take everything from us without a fight." Korath, the Xaran general, stepped forward, his once proud voice now tinged with frustration. "There is no fight left. We can't hold out much longer. They are everywhere. Their ships are unrelenting. We can't win this." The silence in the room was deafening as the reality set in. Their unity had been their last hope, but humanity's warships had proven that no matter how strong the Alliance's combined fleets were, they were simply no match for the ruthlessness and efficiency of humanity's forces. Then, just as the Alliance was preparing to make their final stand, something unexpected happened. A message crackled through the communications network, a message that stunned the entire command room. It was from the humans. A single broadcast from the Judgment echoed across the galaxy, heard in every corner of the Alliance's domain. "We are not here to annihilate you. We are here to reshape your future. You have failed in your unity. Your way of governance is obsolete. We offer you one final chance. Submit to the new order. You can either perish or join us. The galaxy will be ours, and it will be yours, if you accept our terms." The message was simple. There was no ultimatum. There was no demand for unconditional surrender. The humans weren't just declaring victory. They were offering the galaxy a place in their new order. The question was no longer whether the Alliance could defeat humanity. The question was whether the galaxy could accept its new reality. Varric stood silent, his mind racing. The finality of it all hit him with the force of a comet. There was no escape. Humanity had not just conquered the galaxy, it had rewritten the very laws that governed it. They had proven that they were the superior force, not just in strength, but in vision. And so, with heavy hearts, the leaders of the Alliance sent their response. The war was over. The galaxy, for better or worse, had fallen under the shadow of humanity's reign. In the days that followed, as humanity's flag was raised above the last remnants of the Galactic Fleet's headquarters, one thing became undeniable. Galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, but as rulers. The dawn of a new empire had begun.